Elvis Presley didn't just perform, he rewired what it meant to hold an audience. Some presences are impossible to teach. Lisa Marie Presley carried a name that was also a weight, and she carried it on her own terms. Matthew Perry made a generation laugh, and kept showing up, even when showing up cost him enormously. Tina Turner rebuilt a career from nothing in her 40s, and became bigger than she had ever been. That is not luck. That is craft and will. Gene Hackman proved that screen presence isn't about being handsome or smooth. It's about being true. Kirstie Alley understood comedy as discipline. She made it look easy because she worked to make it look easy. Jimmy Buffett built an entire world out of a lifestyle and a feeling. That kind of brand loyalty doesn't happen by accident. Leslie Jordan, small in stature, enormous in presence. He reminded us that authenticity is the rarest form of charisma. Liam Payne grew up in front of the world's eyes, searching, like so many, for the artist underneath the fame. Coolio gave us Gangster's Paradise and proved that one perfectly realized moment can outlive every trend around it. There is a version of George Clooney that almost everyone knows. The silver hair, the easy smile, the way he walks into a room like the room was already waiting for him. That version sold a lot of movie tickets, a lot of tequila, and a lot of magazine covers. But the version that actually built the career, the one that stayed in the room after everyone else had gone home, the one that rewrote scenes at midnight and turned down parts that paid well because they felt cheap, that version is quieter, and it is the one worth understanding. Start with the work, because Clooney himself always has. In interview after interview over 4 decades, he has returned to the same idea, that talent without repetition is just potential. He grew up in a household where performance was professional, not recreational. His father, Nick Clooney, was a broadcaster and journalist, a man who understood that the camera rewarded preparation and punished comfort. His aunt, Rosemary Clooney, was a genuine American star, a singer and actress whose career was built on craft and then tested by time. George Clooney absorbed both lessons before he ever stepped in front of a camera himself. He watched what sustained careers looked like, and he watched what happened when the industry moved on. He came to Los Angeles in the early 1980s with an old car, a limited budget, and no meaningful credits. What he had was the willingness to show up. He auditioned constantly, got very little, and kept going. He played bit parts in television films and episodic television for years, roles so small they barely register in a filmography now. He did not land anything that changed his circumstances until well into his 20s. That window, the stretch between arriving and mattering, is where a lot of people quit. Clooney did not quit. He took odd jobs, stayed in the game, and kept developing the specific skill set that would eventually become his signature, an ability to hold the screen without announcing himself, to be still when other actors reached, to suggest depth without explaining it. The moment everything changed publicly was ER. When the medical drama debuted on NBC in 1994, audiences responded to the ensemble almost immediately. But Clooney's Dr. Doug Ross became something beyond a successful television character. He became a type, the charismatic, flawed, instinctively decent man who kept failing the people he cared about and kept trying anyway. The writing gave him room, and he used it precisely. There was nothing showy in his approach. He played Ross as someone who cost himself things, who understood his own weaknesses without being able to fully correct them. Viewers trusted him the way you trust an actor who never seems to be acting. But here is the private cost that the public image didn't advertise. 5 years on ER shooting relentless episodes on demanding schedules at a pace that television in that era required, was not the same as building a film career. Clooney was a star on one medium, while quietly, methodically trying to earn credibility in another. The film offers that came during the ER years were not uniformly good. He made choices that did not work. Batman and Robin in 1997 is the most famous example, a film that became a cultural shorthand for franchise collapse. Clooney has been candid about it in public, treating it with self-deprecating humor rather than defensiveness. What that response reveals is something more useful than the film itself. He understood the difference between what he'd done and what he was capable of, and he refused to let the failure redefine his ceiling. What happened after the Batman period is one of the more carefully constructed image rehabilitations in modern Hollywood, except it wasn't really a rehabilitation, it was an escalation. Out of Sight in 1998, directed by Steven Soderbergh, is where many film audiences recalibrated their understanding of what Clooney could actually do. The film was not a massive commercial event, but it was precise, stylish, adult, and built on a chemistry between Clooney and Jennifer Lopez that felt genuinely electric. He was doing something different there, leaning into charm as a performance choice rather than a default setting, letting the camera see the calculation behind the ease. It was a demonstration that the easy smile had hard work behind it. Three Kings in 1999 pushed further. David O. Russell's Gulf War film demanded a kind of physical and emotional roughness that the ER version of Clooney had not been asked for. He delivered it. The performance was committed in a way that surprised people who had filed him under leading man and not much else. The behind-the-scenes tensions on that production have been well documented. The relationship between Clooney and Russell was reportedly hostile at points. But the film stands, and Clooney's work in it stands. He understood that the discomfort of the process was sometimes the price of the result. Then came the Oceans films. Ocean's 11 in 2001 was, on one level, a piece of commercial entertainment built around star power and cool. On another level, it was a study in restraint. Clooney's Danny Ocean is almost ostentatiously underplayed. Where other actors might have embellished, he subtracted. The movie works because its star trusts the audience to do the work, to fill in what isn't said, to feel the stakes through what he doesn't show rather than what he does. The sequels sustained the franchise through sheer personality, but the original succeeded because the person at the center of it knew exactly how little was enough. What doesn't get discussed as often is the way Clooney has used his position not just to perform, but to produce and direct work that reflects his actual interests. Confessions of a Dangerous Mind, his directorial debut in 2002, was an eccentric, formally risky film that nobody needed him to make. Good Night and Good Luck, in 2005, was a black-and-white period drama about Edward R. Murrow and the early television confrontation with McCarthyism, a story Clooney had clearly thought about carefully, influenced in part by his father's career in journalism. The film was critically embraced and Oscar-nominated. It was also the kind of thing that a man purely optimizing for commercial stardom would not have made. He made it because he believed in it. That gap between what the market wanted from him and what he chose to build is where his actual taste lives. The Oscars tracked his rise in a way that confirmed what serious audiences already felt. He won Best Supporting Actor for Syriana in 2005, a performance that required him to gain weight, shoot in difficult conditions, and play a character with no vanity and no cinematic softening. The image that had made him a star, the handsome, effortless presence, was deliberately set aside. That willingness to work against his own brand, to risk the image in service of the role, is one of the clearest signs of a professional who takes the craft more seriously than the currency of his own likeness. His later films have continued the pattern of intelligent choices, interrupted by occasional commercial ones, which is frankly what any long career in Hollywood looks like if you are honest about it. Michael Clayton in 2007 is a film that holds up precisely because Clooney plays a fixer, a man who is good at something morally compromised, who knows it and who lives with it, with zero self-pity and absolute precision. Up in the Air in 2009 gave him another variation on the same theme: competence as armor, efficiency as a way of avoiding intimacy. He received an Academy Award nomination for the role. The Descendants in 2011, directed by Alexander Payne, put him in territory he had not inhabited on screen before: grief, middle age, parenthood under pressure, and he was fully present for all of it. Behind every public performance is a set of habits the audience doesn't see. Clooney has described his preparation in terms that are practical rather than mythological. He learns his lines cold, he researches his characters' professional worlds thoroughly, and he works with directors rather than against them. Something that is not as universal in his tier of stardom as it might sound. He has also spoken publicly about the value of understanding production. He knows enough about filmmaking as a craft, from camera placement to editing logic, to be a genuine collaborator rather than a passenger. That knowledge came from paying attention over decades, not from formal training. The personal dimension of his story has always been more protected than the professional one, and that protection is itself a kind of craft. For years, the prevailing public narrative about Clooney was the confirmed bachelor, the Lake Como lifestyle, the charming refusal to settle. When he married human rights lawyer Amal Alamuddin in 2014, the public recalibration was genuine. He had, in his own telling, found something that changed his sense of what the next phase looked like. They have twins. He has spoken about fatherhood with evident warmth and a recognizable kind of late-arriving gratitude. None of that is secret, but none of it has been performed for consumption either. He has maintained the line between what the public owns and what belongs to him. The tequila company, Casamigos, which Clooney co-founded with Randa Gerber and Mike Meldman, was sold to Diageo in 2017 for up to $1 billion. It is frequently cited as an example of celebrity branding, and that framing is accurate but incomplete. The brand was built over years, starting as something Clooney and his co-founders genuinely drank rather than endorsed. The commercial success was real and substantial, but the origin was personal preference, not market research. That detail matters because it reflects something consistent in how he operates. He tends to build things he actually believes in and let the market decide, rather than chasing the market and hoping sincerity follows. His public advocacy for Darfur, for political causes he has backed openly, for press freedom in ways that echo his father's career, has been consistent enough to be credible and specific enough to avoid the generic quality that makes celebrity activism easy to dismiss. He has testified before Congress, traveled to conflict zones, and used his platform in ways that carry personal risk to his public image. Whether or not one agrees with every position, the engagement is not decorative. What George Clooney represents in the longer arc of Hollywood is something that is harder to replicate than it looks. The ability to be genuinely commercially successful and genuinely artistically serious over a long stretch of time without fully surrendering one to the other. He has been a movie star in the old sense, where the person carries the film on presence alone. And he has been a character actor's character actor, disappearing into roles that asked him to abandon everything the stardom was built on. He has been a director who made films that studios didn't fully understand, and a producer who got difficult projects made by understanding how the industry works at a structural level. The silver hair and the easy smile are still there. The Lake Como house is still there. The image is intact because it was built on something real. The discipline of a man who decided very early that he was going to do this seriously or not at all, who spent his 20s being ignored and kept going, who got his first real break in his early 30s and used it to earn the next one rather than coast, who made a film about Edward R. Murrow in black and white because that was the right way to make it. George Clooney is still working. The career is not a monument yet. It is a practice, one that keeps demonstrating what it looks like when someone combines ambition, taste, and the willingness to keep improving long after the world has already